We are at number 7. Now we are talking about General Hospital. General Hospital falls one spot from October. Sorry, boo boo, but GH just didn't really bring it enough for me in November. When there's a show and there's, the backstage drama is more entertaining than the stuff that's on screen. It's a problem. And with the mandate by Disney and Disney owning ABC and ABC, owning General Hospital, we saw what happened. I've already talked about this. So, Jax and Jason will be off the show, those characters, because the actors that portray them did not get vaccinated. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a while, if I remember. Let's talk about the actual product, the actual storylines. And let's face it, there's a lot of storylines on General Hospital right now that either they're trying to put together couples that don't have chemistry, looking at Maxie, or they're trying to put together storylines that are such like C and D stories that they're not good at all. It's hard for me to care. And then the A story, I would say, and that's arguable, I guess, was the Cassadine Island stuff with Peter and Jason and Drew and all of them. That took up that was kind of the main story, but it also was really oddly paced and likely going to end up being the swan song of the character of Jason. They did not write Jason good during the story. They really wrote Jason weak compared to how we've usually seen Jason throughout the history of the show. Which I wouldn't mind if the villain in this wasn't fucking Peter. We are never going to be rid of Peter on this show. I don't know why they just won't kill him off. He's such a cartoon villain. It's ridiculous. There is nothing good about the character of Peter. He's not a good villain. It's just way over the top. He just always escapes everything. Redundant to say the least, but also just stupid. I would definitely put Peter, if I were to do a list of the worst villains in the history of soap operas, Peter would be very high on that list because he's one of the worst villains of all time. That's how I feel about Peter, and I think Peter the cartoon has definitely soured that story. So, we could talk about budget and if it looked good in some of the caves, but I don't really care about all that. So yeah, that story, like I was intrigued by it and I wanted to like it, and I didn't completely hate it. It had elements of adventure, from soap opera past, and it had elements of being intriguing enough, but the execution for the most part wasn't good. And a lot of that had to do with the character of Peter being such an over the top villain. But in the end, Drew finally returns to Port Charles, and we will get to see Cameron, the actor, act with more people than just people when he's locked up or in a cave. Now, I still think that the story that should be more prominent, and it gets airtime, but it should be the main story on the show. And that is the younger characters. The young set on General Hospital is the most compelling part of the show. I think maybe it's because it's like they're fresh, maybe. I don't even know why, because usually if I were to go and talk about soap operas, maybe other than some Australian soap operas, because I feel like they focus on the younger characters more. But for the most part in soap opera past, I would never really say, yeah, the younger characters are really driving the show and are the best part of the show. Maybe a point with the last blast teens on Days in the early to mid 2000s, maybe the teens on The Young and the Restless around that same time. And I mean, obviously in the 80s, there was a lot of good teen characters, even like Frisco and Felisa were a younger set of characters on General Hospital back in the day, although they weren't necessarily my favorite. But I do love this set of characters. Spencer, Trina, Esme, Josh, and Cam. A great younger set of characters. I do like what they're doing with them. Esme spinning little webs within these characters are great. You know, she has that relationship with Spencer, but Spencer and Trina have that dynamic that really still needs to move along a little faster for me. And we know Esme does not like those two, and the fact that Spencer can have a conversation with Trina and Trina change his mind a lot. But we also have her messing with Cam now and Josh, trying to get them to have sex, really putting the pressure on them to have sex. I think that could go in a really interesting direction if Esme can continue to manipulate Cam. Um, so yeah, she adds a really good dynamic as an antagonist to those that core of younger characters. She also has that connection to Ryan in the psych ward. So I want to see more of the teens because they are the best, most entertaining part of the show. So I really hope they keep adding layers to the teens and all that because I would watch that all the time. I wouldn't have to fast forward like I do with some of these stories. I'm sorry, but some of them, why should I care? Yeah, Esme bringing the manipulation to all of these characters has been rather entertaining for me. I wish it was on more often. I wish the story moved a little quicker, but also I don't hate the pace for this story as I hate for some of the others on this show because the pace on General Hospital can be really tiring and slow. It's an American soap opera staple, but the stories have to actually be strong to be able to make that entertaining, and most of the stories on the show I like that we're getting to see more Curtis, and they're actually giving him more backstory, and we're getting to see his father Marshall more. So diving into the character of Curtis, I enjoy. We got to see Miss Wu, and she had a conversation with Sunny. So there was some other little stuff here and there that I enjoyed, but it just still, for the most part, General Hospital in November was more of a step down in November than a step up after October. It's still just kind of like the middle of my ranking soap opera, where sometimes I like it, but sometimes there's just a lot of fast forward material for me. Now let's get back to the mandate and Steve Burton leaving the show. You know, people, when I made the video on this, people were like, oh my God, how can they do this to fucking Jax? Did you see how easy it was to write Jax out of this show? He's been a non factor on General Hospital for like 2 decades. So come on. But Jason, obviously, a huge character. And I just don't understand why people are upset with the show. It's not General Hospital's fault. This is a Disney mandate, not just General Hospital themselves. So being upset with the show over this is dumb. It's dumb. I'm sorry, but it's dumb. So be upset with Disney, but don't be upset with the show themselves because they didn't make this decision. The actors made the decision, and Disney made the decision. So you could be mad at Disney, or you could be mad at the actors, but to be actually mad at the show is stupid. Which brings me to the conversation of stands, something I always talk about on the channel. And being stands of an actor it's a lot for me. I feel the same way I feel about being stands of players on Big Brother or Survivor. It's stupid. That's kid shit. Like being so much of a stan that they could do no wrong is just crazy to me. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it because that's kid shit. I can see like when you're a kid and you're like, yeah, this artist is the best ever. I love everything they do. Like when I was a kid, I'm sure I felt that way about pro wrestlers. I felt that way about athletes. But now to do that as an adult, it's weird to me. I'm sorry, it just is. So the actors can do wrong, and these shows can do wrong. But I just when I made that video, people were getting mad at the show. People were getting mad at me, saying I ain't a fan of the show. No, I'm not a stan of the show. I'm a fan of all these shows, but I'm not a stan because these shows can do wrong for me, and I will call them out on it when it warrants it and when the creative directions suck. Sorry, Keith. Keith was his name in the comments. Anyway, so we're gonna see Jason off of this show. It's gonna be they'll probably kill him off, I'm assuming, or at least kill him off in quotation marks again. Who knows? Maybe he should have just left town for a while. I think that would have been the better story. But it does kill some momentum between him and Carly that made up a big portion of the year. So we'll see where the GS takes the show in December and into the new year. They need to just really give the younger set the main story. But I know some of those the actors and actresses are in college, so it's kind of hard to do that and have them on all the time. I get it. But the story can either move a little faster or they could just dive deeper into the teens because that's pretty much the only part of the show that I actually like right now. A lot of the rest of the show leaves a lot to be desired. But that's all. I'll stop rambling about General Hospital for now. It lands at number 7 for November 2020.